Mm-mm.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Okay, it looks like people on the Zoom can hear me. Can people in CB in the room hear me? Valerie, I can't hear you. Okay, I can hear you now. Actually, no, Valerie, can you say something? I don't know if I can hear the room. Hey, Valerie, I see you waving. No, there's no audio.
Can't hear the CB2 office.
Yeah, we can't hear the CB2 office.
Can you guys hear us now?
Yeah, we can hear you. There's a lot of feedback.
Yeah. You need to disconnect your audio.
So go in the bottom left corner where the arrow is, click disconnect audio.
What are you running through now?
No, just we're back on.
Just turned on. You're back on?
Yeah.
How'd you do that? Well,
I think it just power cycled and came back on.
okay.
We good?
Yep, let's
That's what I
go.
knew I was doing.
Thank you.
Oh, now one of our cameras is frozen for, oh, no, you're unfrozen now.
Because our connection is unstable.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah, I think that might.
Yeah, you're cutting in and out the audio and the connection.
Which one are we
I
on?
can do that. This is the one that's in the room.
I don't want my personal hotspots. I'm not taking any. We seem okay, Eugene?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Please keep typing and letting me know so I can, so we can remedy that. Good
Sure.
evening. Welcome to Manhattan Community Board 2's September Executive Committee meeting. It is now 6:45 p.m. and I call this meeting to order. I'm Valerie Della Rosa, the first vice chair for Manhattan Community Board 2, and I will be chairing tonight's meeting. let's get started. First on the agenda, we have the approval of the August executive committee minutes. Mark sent them around. Do we have any corrections?
No.
Okay, no. And do we have a motion to approve the August executive committee
Motion.
minutes?
Second.
So Janine made the motion and Patricia seconded this time. Great. Chair's report, community planning fellows. Project proposals are due Monday, September 30th. I won't go through all about what it is. We had 2 fellows last year, one that studied parking spaces and presented to the traffic committee, and another that took an inventory of landmarks building and presented to the landmarks committee. Project proposal submissions are due Monday, September 30th. Does anyone have a project proposal they would like to bring up here for consideration? If so, let me know. We can bring it up in new business. And if not, please email Mark Diller, Susan Kent, myself with project proposals for consideration. Next up, we have the capital expense budget that we'll be going over at the October executive committee meeting. Where we'll rank our top 3 choices for capital and for expense. During your chair's report, if you could please let us know how your committee is doing with your request and how the office can help you. Mark, have there been, how are the budget consultation meetings going with the city agencies? And there's another one on the 22nd, is that correct?
The 26th.
The 26th, okay.
Last of the 3, the first 2 Mondays, and now it's a week from Thursday. More agencies than usual are not filling in or not providing the answers. I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. We prepare written questions and submit them to the agencies in July. Many agencies, but not all, provide written responses in advance of the consultation so you can have a conversation. But unfortunately, DSS and HRA, 2 very important agencies for a lot of what we are concerned with.
Social services and HRA is.
The umbrella over social
Right.
services. So all of this includes shelters, homeless relief, all those kinds of things. They did not provide written responses. And so you spend part of the meeting trying to suss out the numbers. They've committed to preparing them and sending them, but we don't have them in hand timely. Anyway, so that's, and then like a lot of years, very few agencies will actually tell you they need something. NYPD, by the way, is the exception. They'll always take more money.
Thank you so much. Next, I'd like to applaud the Landmarks Committee for their work on the Doppolito resolution. I don't see Chanel on or Susan Gammy, so I'm not sure we'll have a report on that this evening. As for board member updates, Ann Hager has resigned. Janine, and as far as new committee appointments, Janine is now on cannabis licensing and on traffic and transportation. Another 2 more items, and then I will turn it over to Mark for his district manager's report. Father Demos Square, today we had a walkthrough with Councilmember Botcher and Parks Manhattan Borough Commissioner Tricia Shiamura, along with CB2 board member David Gruber, about replacing the hexagonal pavers in and around Father Demos Square. And we should find out in 2 weeks what the cost is for that. They're trying to make it an expense item for parks. Katie, did you have a question?
Could you just repeat the name of the person who resigned? It was a little.
Ann Hager.
Oh, that's what I thought you said. Oh,
Yes.
okay. From the board?
Yes.
Thank you for clarifying.
Sure. The next item, the 6th Precinct Community Council, while this is not a CB2-led meeting, I want to call attention to it. The 6th Precinct Community Council's next meeting, this is NYPD, is next Wednesday, September 25th at 7 p.m. at Our Lady of Pompeii. This is an in-person only meeting. The 6th Precinct Community Council is directly handling quality of life issues in and around Washington Square Park. I encourage committee members from Human Services, Parks and Waterfront, as well as Street Activities and Resiliency to attend this meeting. There will be several elected officials at this meeting, including State Senator Brad Hoylman Siegel, State Senator Brian Kavanaugh, Assemblymember Deborah Glick, Councilmember Botcher, and Councilmember Rivera. Congressman Dan Goldman might be virtual. Okay, this totally might be virtual.
Date again
Is Wednesday, September 25th at 7 p.m. As a programming note, the outdoor dining working group for this board is meeting that evening at 5:30 to accommodate so that there are people in the community that want to attend both meetings. We've tried to make that possible. That is the end of the chair's report. I'm now going to turn it over to Mark Diller for the district manager's report.
Okay, thank you. So following on the updates on the calendar, SLA 1 has moved to Tuesday, October 1st. And CLC, Cannabis Licensing Committee, will not meet that day. So that'll be the only meeting for that night. We're progressing with the district needs statement and the budget priorities. I just spoke about the OMB consultation, so I will repeat. The Google Drive that I highlighted last month has even more in it now. And if I could quickly share a screen and show you how to find a couple things that might be useful to that effort. And of course, they've now disappeared. Okay, let's go to, here we are. Okay, now we're going to go share the screen. So here's the Google Drive. So down here under district needs statement and budget requests. This is what we had for last year, and it's sometimes useful to refer to what you looked at last year. But let's go to fiscal 26. So right now we're in the cycle for fiscal 26, which starts next July. And among the things that are in the drive, I called attention to several of them last month, but here's the things I want to call your attention to now. In addition to the budget priorities, which include last year's and what the agencies said in response, which is sometimes instructive. Just because an agency says no doesn't mean you can't ask for it again, but you should perhaps phrase it differently or acknowledge and give them a different argument as to why it's good. Let me go back, because what I really want to call your attention to is that there are two parts to this exercise. One is the budget priorities, and that is, of course, money, things that you're asking the city to fund. In theory, community boards are supposed to identify offsets for those. No one ever does. And we don't have the bandwidth to have an informed conversation about that. But the other part of it is a narrative. And there are elements in the narrative description of our district that the committees should prepare, not the district manager, because you guys know this stuff so much better than me. And so what I've done is I've taken last year's, and that's often a good place to start, but because some of this narrative description still has things in it like COVID and responses to things that have now changed, you want to do more than just tweak, I think. But within that, you'll see that these are the buckets of the narrative descriptions that the form calls for us to input. And so I basically copied them from the PDF and then hopefully formatted them so that they can actually be manipulated. And they have our descriptions from last year. So between the two different things, you'll have the complete set of DNS and budget priorities items to be completed. And so that's all I want to say about that, I think. Oh, except that just two reminders. One is that in addition to the budget priorities, the board as a whole is required to come up with 3 top priorities. They can be either capital or expense or a mix. That are the overall priorities. And you'll see in the narrative descriptions down here, top 3 overall priorities. Not only do we identify the budget items, but there's actually we provide a description of each one and why it's important. Okay. In addition to that, each area, each subject matter area, which is roughly equivalent to our committees, should come up with 1 top priority for each area. So 1 for education, 1 for human services, 1 for land use. You get the idea. Okay. And again, those are things that should be decided around this table by the members, because that's a lot of what people read. Okay. Moving along on my DM report, we've already covered the fund for the City of New York and the Urban Graduate Fellows. There's nothing more to say except it's really great, and we'd be fools not to take advantage of it. With respect to the issue that is now synonymous with my name, it appears that thanks to Susan and David Gruber, the fourth time is the charm. We've had our fourth consultant on the audio issues for hearing people remotely. And last night at Canvas, we actually could hear the folks at home speak in the room. I am knocking wood as I say that I'm looking forward to Thursday and full board in a way that I haven't in a year and 3 months. Okay, so kudos to David and Susan for finding an actual DJ who does this for a living and showed me her turntable. And, you know, anyway.
Dance party next Thursday.
We've heard from, as you probably everybody knows, our longtime temp, Francine, is out and has had surgery. The surgery was successful. She's corresponding with us, no return date in mind yet, but glad to hear that all is going well. And just to make life really confusing, we've taken on, with the help of everybody around this table and elsewhere, we have a replacement sub-temp whose name is also Frank, but he's a man, Francisco, and he's working out great so far, and we have high hopes that will continue. And then a reminder, the holiday party, save the date, Monday, December 9th. Unless there are questions, that's my report. Seeing none.
Great, thank you. We have a question from Frederica.
Yes, I want to go back to the part about the Father Demo Square paver replacement.
Sure.
I gather that because Eric was involved in the walkthrough, that the paver replacement might come out of his budget. Is that right?
There are a variety of options that are being explored and being priced out in terms of whether or not it goes to being paid as overtime. The consensus seems to be not for it to be a capital project because that would take a long time. And so there were, in addition to Trish, there was a gentleman named Max from the Parks Department who is going to be providing the pricing, as well as Therese from the Parks Department, who is really on the ground there. So we will find out in 2 weeks what that funding mechanism would look like.
So my question is, the parks, last year's expense and capital priorities had a lot of park projects, and that was not one of them. And so I'm curious to know how Father Demo got in the queue when it wasn't one of our requests. And if it wasn't one of our requests, and it might, there's only so much money, why aren't we starting with the list of things that we had as priorities rather than doing this?
Rika, this is an excellent question. I got briefed into this visit about 2 hours before it happened. I believe this is something that was organized by David Gruber. And so that is where this meeting came about. I was just invited by Councilmember Botcher's office about 2 hours before the meeting. So
and who else, sorry, but who else was on the walkthrough from CB2?
It was myself, and that's it.
All right, well, I mean, it's always great when people fund things for us, but I would think that they would somehow correspond to our priorities. So I would just question, that seems like a kind of a extemporaneous event to me.
As I mentioned, I was notified about this 2 hours prior.
I'm speaking to the whole group, not you, and I know Rich is on, and
Yeah.
maybe he'll have some comment about it.
I think Frederica I think it was the opposite direction, that they included the community board at the last minute. It didn't
Yeah.
originate from the community board.
Well, David Gruber is on the community board.
He's also the head of the association, the Friends of Father Demo.
Another participant on that I forgot to mention was Zach from the West Village bid. And again, there were questions raised about funding mechanisms. The bid can contract to do business with the city. And so there were questions about funding mechanisms of having them potentially do part of the work, say on the fountain.
So
But
that was Zach Weinstein?
no, not Zach Weinstein. This is Zach, I believe his last name is Williams. He's the executive director for the West Village Business Improvement District.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wondered, okay, so in a way, it has nothing to do with CB2.
It is definitely a great question to raise. I had thought it was not, I had your same thought that it would be something to bring up here to let everyone know, since Father Demo Square was not on the capital or expense budget from last year. So that's why I'm raising it here, so that, Rich, anyone else on that committee can know about that and could be discussed here
Thanks.
or brought up at the October executive committee meeting or the October Parks Committee meeting, which is exactly what this meeting is all about. Katie.
Thanks.
This is the first I've heard of this walkthrough, but I regularly walk from my home to the CB2 or to St. Anthony's along Father Demo Square, and there are quite a few trip hazards that I don't know. I guess it hasn't gone to parks, but it is I have found it to be in need of repair as a citizen.
So it's more a safety issue, perhaps?
It's a safety as much as it is really more than cosmetic. The different options that came up were working on it section by section, and I guess there's sand underneath on those outer areas, so that's why we've all stepped on those pavers that are wobbly. There's clearly some that are missing all of the trip hazards. So there's that being an option. There is an option of and saving what is there. An option being priced on taking the older ones, filling them in, and then having to redo a section of newer ones, because there has to be more made. And then the third option, which seemed to be the least favorite, was to pave it with normal sidewalk, which I don't think anyone there is in favor of. So.
Question about it too. So it's beyond having a committee meeting and reviewing this. The topic is beyond that at this point.
That's a great question. There were just different funding mechanisms that were discussed. The Manhattan Borough Parks Commissioner was saying that the ideal funding would be partnering with the group that has raised some sum of money, such as the Friends group, and then the additional funds coming in, or that's typically how, for example, asking money from the borough president would come in, is kind of being that tail end funder. So it's just trying to find out how that's going to be allocated. So
The other thing is, I guess I was asking that because I really can't remember what our policy is in cases like this, where an issue is brought to, say, the council person or a block association or something, but it doesn't go to the community board. Do we have a specific policy on how we handle that? And does that necessarily go into a budget request? I just don't remember it ever happening.
the Parks Committee could certainly ask for Parks to come give an update on the status of that, if they so choose.
We have organizations all through the board that advocate directly to our elected officials. We have 7 bids.
Yeah.
They all engage separately on their own
Right.
issues regularly.
Well, and they do come to the board usually with specific kinds of
Sometimes.
issues.
Sometimes
Fine, that's it. So what do we do in a case like when they don't?
And they're looking at how much it would cost to fund the overtime of the internal shop of Parks Department to do the work, and then also the best there's a specific phrase for the type of contractor, like the best price contractor. So they're looking at those. So they're supposed to come back to the group, and I'm assuming that Susan or Mark, Susan Kent or Mark Diller would be copied on those emails as well, and bring in the appropriate committee chair, being Rich. Okay.
Yeah, I haven't heard from David or from Bodger's office yet.
Okay.
It's the first I've heard of it. I've written to David asking him for some clarification.
Perfect. That sounds like a great idea. Thank you.
So it's for sure, just one last thing. It's for sure that the Parks Department doesn't have unlimited money, and anything they're spending on this will impinge upon our list of our priorities. So I think we should certainly stay involved. Thank you, Rich.
Thanks. So next we're going to review the draft October calendar and future calendars. Yeah, could you? That would be helpful. So Mark's going to share the calendars on the screen. Give it a second. Thank you, Mark. Okay. Does anyone have any changes to the October calendar? Okay. Can we look at the other calendars?
One comment is.
We're not comment on what?
Human Services meeting on Halloween, you cannot move in our community board across.
Oh, yeah.
6th Avenue.
That should definitely be rescheduled.
Yeah, meaning that you can't get around. So somebody's on the west side. Yeah.
So Mark, if you could be in touch with Susanna on a new meeting date.
Well, it doesn't have to be a new meeting date, just people to be able to get there.
Oh, okay. Or not a new meeting date. Okay, anything on?
I have a
Yes.
question. So,
Just a
I had,
second. Ivy, if you could just please wait a second, Shirley.
As I have begun to say before, just for December,
Uh-huh.
there's a mutual issue that both Parks and Transportation are handling. And
Okay.
Rich and I would like to combine our meeting.
On Wednesday the 4th?
Meeting-
Okay.
No, on Thursday the 5th.
Against SLA 2?
Well, otherwise I can't go to Outdoor Dining.
Well, after dining, we could also move as well. Could we do, I guess, Mar, we're not sure if cannabis on the 10th can, I'd much rather leave SLA 2 on its own.
I really think this issue is gonna have anything to do with this.
I wonder, sorry, not just this, it's also traffic and transportation and parks and waterfront, so that's basically
Yeah.
committees meeting on one.
Yeah.
Joint meeting.
Then I
Yeah,
There are other-
I mean, I'm not picky and I have 2 applications. We have 2 applications and we have plenty of time.
Okay.
So I think we can do later in the month. Yeah.
Or we could just double up on the 10th and just, okay, so maybe.
Oh, this is December.
Yeah, we'll get December. December.
Let's ask for December.
Yeah, you don't have, they wanna.
I don't think I'm gonna be on the 25th.
I know you're not gonna be on the 20th. I will not be either. Okay, so maybe we need to double up on the 10th
That's fine with me.
for outdoor dining. So, I mean, I would prefer to keep Parks and Waterfront with traffic and transportation on Wednesday, the 4th, if that works for you and Rich.
If you want to do that.
I will, it's also for the people who serve on those 2 committees or possibly serve on SLA or the community being bifurcated across meetings specifically, so.
Rich, are you there? Is Wednesday is your day anyhow, and I think that's
Yeah.
fine.
Oh, wait a
That'd be great.
Rich, does that work?
Wednesday,
I
right?
don't have a date.
2 of us, okay.
There's no
So
field.
let's go back to that. Okay, so we're going to put cannabis licensing and outdoor dining working group on the 10th. And traffic and transportation is gonna move from the 5th of December to the 4th of December. We've eliminated probably 10 emails here, so that's great.
Yeah, so Parks and Water.
And then
12:40.
Ivy, you had a question?
I'm gonna move to the 21st.
Yeah, I do have a question. About a month and a half ago, Susan, contacted me about, I guess arts is gonna be folded under or together with education, is that correct?
No.
No.
No, that's not happening.
So,
Perhaps, it sounds like there's some confusion. I had been told that, but that has now since changed according to our
It never
schools and
changed.
ed
It said no.
chair. Okay, okay, got it. So that sounds like an offline conversation, Ivy, with you and Susan Kent and Patricia. I don't have any information on that.
but you heard that there was a shift at one point, right? I just want to
I
make
heard there was something changed, but that was not given to me the instructions to speak about this evening.
Can I speak on that? It was suggested
Okay.
and discussed and decided against.
Okay, because I wasn't invited to any of those meetings. I thought there was gonna be a follow-up where it was
There was
left.
no meeting. It was floated. We thought about it and then decided it maybe wasn't a good fit.
Okay. All right.
Okay, I will connect you with Susan, so that can be cleared up. We were gonna go back to the October calendar, Mark, if we could. Marv, you would want to talk about October for cannabis.
Yeah, is the 21st available?
It looks available to me. I don't know if there's any, so let's put you on the 21st.
Yep. Thank you.
Great.
So that's,
So cannabis on October 21st. And I think we are done with the calendar. Great. So now let's go to the committee reports. I'm going to start with, I was going to go in order that everyone is on the calendar. That we're going to go start with Shirley first for traffic and transportation.
Yeah, I'm just going to give you brief updates. I think I mentioned already that the upcoming full board meeting will have the request for a full bus route on West Street, 9A. In other words, as the M12 goes above 14th Street, nothing goes below 14th Street on West Street. So
This is your resolution coming to the September full board.
and the other thing is we're asking for a study of Mullery Square intersection. For anybody that doesn't know what that is, West 11th Street, Greenwich Avenue, 7th Avenue South. It's probably the most complex and possible intersection, which they've been working on for years. And so we'll do another try. So that's that. And
Thanks for that one, sir.
yeah, it's really such a crazy intersection. So that was July 30th, was being presented at this full board
Okay.
because it was never presented before because it wasn't a full board. And the thing that's upcoming, let's see, for our TNT meeting, there's a co-name request from McCarthy Square. It was for this wonderful man I never knew about, but I always loved McCarthy Square, who just single-handedly rejuvenated the whole square. He's gone now, but his good works, they're trying to carry them on. So that was one thing. And the other thing that is.
Can you tell us where that is so everyone can hear?
Okay, should I talk into you?
Yeah.
Okay, and the other one is a request for doing safety measures for that terrible intersection, another intersection at Greenwich Avenue where 10th Street coming from the west, coming east, turns north. And if you remember, and I even need to talk about the really horrendous killing of Lori Kleiman, an activist in our community, who was trying to cross Greenwich Avenue last year and was hit and killed bike turning park. So the idea is to do something about that. Okay, and then two pieces of good news. I may have mentioned them already. For 10 years, we've been asking for stop signs on Washington Street at Bank Street. They're nice. Great, okay.
Our entire
The
lives.
other is that we have been asking,
Thank you.
Wait, can you say that again? Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you.
oh my God, we've been trying forever, isn't that wonderful? Yeah.
Thank you.
So, and the other is, we have been asking for several years now too, for, not as long as 10, but for several years, we've been asking to fill in the gap between, on 6th Avenue, the bike lane goes as far south as 8th. We've been asking to fill in the gap as far south as Canal. It is being filled in actually to Esplanade Street, which is 1 block south of Canal, protected bike lane. So, and it is being done as we speak this month. So,
Great news.
two wonderful things I just wanted to.
And Shirley, I'm just gonna let you know, in my neighborhood, the bike lane is in on Horatio Street between Greenwich and Hudson. And they are working on the bike lane on Gansevoort between Hudson and 8th.
Right, so
Progress.
we knew it was coming, right? So nice when you get a few, huh?
Wonderful. And do you have an October agenda planned for your October meeting yet? So we can include it in the calendar?
See. No, but possibly, Chenault has been talking to me about problems on Christopher Street. These are continuous. And maybe it's time to revisit them again.
On Christopher Street specifically?
Yeah, I guess on the way to 7th Avenue.
Okay, great. And just so, since you brought that.
That's one, and there will be other things we have in mind. but
Also,
I'm
to
deciding.
quickly dovetail with that, the West Village bid has contracted Sasaki to do a 7th Avenue
Yes,
master plan, which would include that area as well. So,
and it will include Mullery Square, which
Mhm.
they're asking for us.
yes, so that should,
And they have.
good timing. Good, okay, great.
It's great to hear that they.
And then a last item, have you gone over capital and expense budget with your committee yet? Will you be talking about it this month? You'll be talking about it
Yes.
at the October meeting?
Yes.
Okay, so just to confirm, your October meeting is after our executive meeting. So will you be talking about it next week possibly? Might be a good idea.
We need to just kind of.
Yeah, if you have any items for the budget, you would want to
talk
cover.
about what, sure, now the Bank Street has been eliminated, the bike lane.
Yeah.
So I can talk about the remainder.
So it'd be good to bring that up at your September meeting, just so we make sure we cover them in exec.
The ones
Thank you.
from last year that are the most urgent ones, because we're not going to be talking about the routine. So,
Okay, great. Next, SLA 1 and 2.
Okay, SLA 1, we heard 4 applications, all decisions were unanimous, there was 1 denial. I don't think I don't think anybody's going to come speak on it. I mean, it wasn't contentious with the community or anything like that, everybody was pretty much on board. And SLA 2, we heard 8 applications, all the decisions were unanimous, and we had 3 denials on that. Same thing, everybody, the community, I don't think anybody will be coming. Really, somebody may come to reinforce their opinion, but I don't think it's contentious, aside from with the applicants. That's it.
Great, and will you be talking about capital expense budget? Okay, and October agenda, we're not sure how many you have. Okay, great.
Valerie,
Next.
I'm wrong, we're talking about it in September.
Okay, I just haven't looked at the agenda. I just wanted to make sure if I didn't know if you had covered it last time, so I'm just asking everyone just to make sure.
On our agenda for September.
Perfect. Next, we'll go to Parks and Waterfront. Rich, like to give us an update?
At our meeting, we discussed our list of district needs assessment requests, both capital and expense.
Great, so that's done.
That's it. Yeah, we'll have our list to contribute to the next executive committee.
Okay, and then for your October agenda, do you have a topic yet?
I don't think so. And I'm trying to remember why we moved it to the 9th instead of the 2nd. I've gotta look. But you know what it is, when we went through our, I think this is maybe helpful for everyone. When we went through our district needs assessment planning process, we looked in September, we looked back at last year's and we looked at the responses we got from the city agencies, parks, obviously. And in many cases, the response given to us was that the request was not specific enough, that they wanted something more definitive in order to plan it. So we have a list of projects that we need to review in order to submit for requests. So that will make up our agenda topics for the next, few months.
Okay, great, thank you. Next, I'm going to go to street activities and resiliency. Will?
Sure, yeah, we had a 24 regular way resolutions and 5 FYI renewals. Nothing too crazy to point out. I mean, the most interesting thing that we're issuing denial on is this run club, and I think we started to see more of these run clubs pop up, which have been very disruptive on the sidewalks.
Excuse me, could the microphone be put closer to what their people?
Sorry about that. The one really notable denial we had was for a run club, and we started to see more run clubs pop up. And I've talked to other folks in the community who've asked me if we can do anything about those, which can be very disruptive on the sidewalks. This one, they were looking to get a permit for a partial sidewalk closure on Broadway in front of Lululemon for every single Saturday from now through the end of October, where folks would gather starting at 6 or 7 a.m. with music, loud noise, and essentially start their runs from there. We pointed out that because they're partnering with Lululemon, we pointed out that there's a Lululemon store in Meatpacking right by the West Side Highway, and there's one in Battery Park City, and those are probably much closer to where folks would want to run. So anyway, I don't know. We issued a denial on that. Apparently, they've already been doing it without a permit as well. So that's not a good fact pattern either. So that's the most interesting sort of thing that came up this month. You may hear about that more often as we see these. There were some articles in the Times and whatnot about these run clubs as well. Next month, I would just say we're going to have a presentation from DSNY. Right now, the agenda is to cover both containerization of trash rules as well as curbside composting and organics recycling, both of which have now come online, or composting is coming online next month. I want this to be sort of an open-ended conversation, so I think I'd still be open to adding other points on the agenda if anyone wants to hear anything from DSNY as well. That does not relate to either of those two topics, or if you have specific questions as it relates to those topics, please let me know so we can just make sure that they are covered. And then we're going to be addressing our DNS. It probably won't change much, and then the budget priorities.
At your October meeting?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Next, we're going to go to Eugene Yu for our land use and housing report.
Thank you, Valerie. So for this month, we heard one application, 110 Christopher Street. They are an applicant that previously was before us in March of this year, asking for a continuation of their variance that had been granted to them for a non-conforming use in the basement of a mixed-use building. In between then and now, one of their tenants in that basement area vacated their space. And so the applicant revised their application asking for a more broader use in order to attract a greater number of potential tenants. We heard the application again, and we also had people come in from the building itself with the same complaints as last time in terms of concerns about increased noise and impact for a more broader use group allowance for that space. We also asked the applicant if anything had really changed between then and now in terms of why they thought this would be less impactful to the building, and they told us no. So in light of the fact that in March we had recommended denial of moving from the previous use group 6A to 6C, we are continuing with that denial, and there's also some small variations because now we're transitioning to a set of new use groups. So it's also the previous use groups were 6A, 6B, 6C, and now they are 6, 7, and one other. It's in my notes. So that's the application for 110 Christopher. And we also did discuss, we began our discussion of the capital and expense budget needs. We have some follow-ups that we'd like to ask the agencies so that we can refine our asks for this year. But we had that discussion, and that will be part of our agenda for October as well, to refine those and get those refined for fiscal year 2026.
And Eugene, do you have a contact that you're working with at the city agency with DCP, or are you connecting with Mark on getting those questions answered? So
I think it'll be helpful to connect with Mark and, attack this from that aspect as well. We were going to look at some of our contacts at HPD, and DCP,
yes.
but, I think it's helpful to get as broad a set of contacts as possible so we can, refine this. Because of course the answer was, we don't deal with it. When the
right.
agency
Or maybe maybe one of the agency meetings is related on the 26th. So maybe connect with Mark and make sure. Also, I know, Mark, your leave is coming up soon, and so you want to be in connection with him sooner at the end of September than October. He will be out for a little bit. So, right, okay. And the second.
Thanks for the suggestion. Okay.
And then for your October agenda, besides the follow-up on the budget items, do you have anything planned for October?
Currently, no.
Okay.
Currently, it's just the budget needs.
Okay, great. Next, I'm going to call on Chenault Spence, Chair of our Landmarks and Public Aesthetics Committee.
We have no notable application. We do have our big activity on the 30th of September about the Dalapito Center. The sort of what we know and what's been decided is up on the website. If one goes to the agenda for the meeting or for the scheduling on the calendar, there are a number of links. In particular, I would point everyone to the, I believe it's called Background, which is what is known on the public record, a bit of history, a good deal of press, and as we get other things in, we'll be adding those in. We have invited for the presentation the Landmarks Commission to give a presentation very specifically on the criteria and methodology for approving demolition of a building in a historic district. And then we've also invited the Parks Department to make a presentation, and we didn't say anything about what they should say. If they accept, I'll talk to them to be sure that what we would want to hear is included in it. And then there'll be questions, and we're rather well organized about this because it's such a big thing, and it's going to have so much interest. I've worked with Susan on organizing the agenda and how the meeting will run and so forth. And when we know more, particularly who's going to speak, then we'll put that up on also along with the notice of the meeting.
Great. Frederica, do you have a question?
Yeah, Chenault, it sounds like a challenging agenda, but what will you do if nobody
Just
from...
one moment, I've got a noise someplace and I need to stop it.
Okay.
There you go.
I'm back.
Okay. So you invited somebody from Landmarks. Did you also invite anybody from Parks?
Yes.
Yes, I said so.
Okay.
We haven't
And-
heard from any of them.
All right, but what's your backup plan if neither of them shows up?
We'll figure it out. We don't have.
Okay, okay, very good. Good luck on that.
Next,
Excuse me.
yes, sure.
Janelle, do we need, is there anything for us to do at this meeting, the executive meeting, on the resolution?
I couldn't hear.
Is there anything for us to do on the resolution at this meeting?
Yeah, that's the next thing I'm going to say.
Okay, I thought you were done with your report, Chanel. Continue.
Yeah, if that's all on the vague things that I've said, we have this thing of the board is not on record about demolition seemed to be an unsustainable continuing thing. So we have prepared a resolution that the upshot of which is very simple, that we're against it being torn down. And that will be presented at the meeting on Thursday. So we'll go into the 30th meeting armed with a clear statement that the community board is opposed to its happening.
Doesn't that kind of preempt the whole process?
No, it strengthens it.
But you haven't heard,
If another resolution is required after, but we want, the purpose of this meeting is very much public relations with the community about it. Part of that is finding out what's intended, and whatever is intended, we're opposed to demolition. This is a landmark, remember, a landmarks only issue. And landmarks is just opposed. The committee is opposed, and we presume that the board will agree.
so did you have a vote on your committee's position on this
Yes,
this
we
month?
formed.
Yes, it was
So-
voted on.
All right, so you're going to present
way.
a resolution for the full board about this
Yes, that's what we're doing on
for
Thursday.
this month.
Yes.
Okay, all right, fine.
Rich?
I hope that's clear.
No. Yeah, but you're not opining on whether or not the what's going to go in the space?
We that is not a concern of this meeting.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah, I know that-
concerned as members of the board about it, but that is
Yeah,
not because landmarks doesn't deal with the interior unless it's an interior landmark.
Yeah, I shouldn't have posed it as a question. I just was
And-
trying to help there.
I'm going to be very clear in the introduction to the meeting that there are other aspects to this, in particular, the park aspect and land use, and there may be others, but whatever else there is, I'm going to faithfully promise that there'll be an adequate time for that to be
Right.
aired and dealt
Okay.
with.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chanel. Thank you, Rich.
Oh, and we'll do the budget at the regular October meeting.
Thank you.
I mean, not the budget, the budget request.
Yes, of course. And next, we're going to go to Mara Fitzgerald for the cannabis licensing report.
Sure. We received 4 notifications, municipality forms from operators, 2 for this month, for appearances this month, 2 withdrew. 1 for 10 Fifth Avenue, who gave notice last month and withdrew, gave notice again and withdrew. We received an exorbitant amount of opposition for that location, but they withdrew. The 2 remaining applications were 20 West 14th Street and 598 Broadway. 20 West 14th Street was unanimously approved, and 598 Broadway was 4 approved with conditions and 3 abstentions. To be operated by Union Square Harbor Group, which is the venture capital firm or investors for Union Square Travel Agency. And this is their 4th or 5th dispensary in the 5 boroughs.
No one has to give their reasons for extensions? Is there any?
You don't have to for extensions.
Right.
If you want to know, I can't speak to other people's
Of course, no worries.
extensions. I can speak to mine. So this is something called an MSA, or goods and services agreement. And most of the dispensaries now, mostly due to the injunction that we know happened and shut down all social equity licenses and all licenses in the entire rollout of cannabis market in New York for 6-7 months. Now people are really scrambling to get investors, and these larger companies are coming in doing these deals with social equity, primarily applicants and licensees, where they provide infrastructure and capital to stand up these businesses. In many cases, they then assume the license in 3 to 4 years, depending on by law, well, when it was licensed and when they're allowed to sell it. Sometimes they're not selling, sometimes they stay in a partnership. Those social equity dispensary owners have to hold a minimum of 51% ownership for the period of time that license. It's usually 3 or 4 years. Again, it depends on when they were licensed. Anyway, the man that came with them was the man that launched this lawsuit. He won his license as part of the settlement for the lawsuit. Really, it didn't matter what we said in this case. He was awarded all of this from this lawsuit that he launched against social equity. And it wouldn't have mattered whether we denied him or not. His proximity protection was locked in as part of the agreement. He could have sat on it forever for that location and blocked anybody else who wanted to operate in the area. He was going to open no matter what on principle because of his actions, really, really damaging the market and harming many, many people who went bankrupt due to his actions and closing many farms. I abstained because I could not in good conscience approve in any way this person.
Thank you so much for that. Will your October agenda, do you have any applications yet?
We have 2 applications. One is, again, twice we've received notice for 112 Mulberry Street. We'll see if they show this time. I believe it's the same situation, another one of these MSAs. The people that are the partners for this location are dazed from Union Square. They have another site at 33 Union Square and many dispensaries in Massachusetts. I am guessing, since they've given notice without the previous person, social equity licensee that they were giving with, that they're looking for another one and just trying to hold on to that space and not lose their proximity protection, which will happen if you can't show progress in your build out within 30 days.
Great. Carter, you had a question?
Yeah, I just, there was some discussion last night about the 49% investors, and it's very discouraging to see the same repetitive ownership structures when we had hoped, when we discussed this as a board earlier on, to see smaller businesses being the primary operators. And this really seems to go against the spirit. And we have such a dense area, and clearly the demand is here since we saw the first, number of dispensaries open in our community. Is there a way we can comment on that? And
we absolutely can.
I was surprised to hear that they had been told by OCM that they should be doing this, and it seemed like a failure on the state's part of their original goal to help with funding, but it just seems to not be in the spirit of what everything. And that I'm just wondering if there's a way that we can say something, because I think it would be a shame in another couple of years if the primary investors are, the 49, not the primary, but the 49 are the same across a swath of the stores in our community.
Exactly what's happening.
Yeah. And
And it's exactly what the MRTA was supposed to protect against. And they've since created other regulations that are supposed to protect against these kinds of monopolies and takeovers of the market so that it would be a robust and competitive but equitable market. And what we're seeing is that the whole social equity directive in the MRTA that was baked in is out the window. People are finding loopholes. There's something called TPI, which is true party of interest. They're figuring out ways not to, they're reconfiguring, they're doing new companies, they're grabbing these social equity licensees, and they have, 4 or 5, 10. I mean, you heard the owner of Union Square saying, people have 16 dispensaries. We're not doing anything wrong. Everybody's doing this. Well, if everybody jumped off a bridge, and also this is not what it was supposed to be. It was not supposed to be just very, very well-resourced big companies owning the whole market, and these, justice-involved individuals who actually have qualifying convictions get nothing.
So Mark, how do we take that to action? I mean, is it something that needs to be on the agenda for next month?
Yes, we'll put it on the agenda for next month. Along with, there are 2 new proposals, one about two new proposed regs that were rolled out that we're going to comment on next month as well.
Okay.
So one was the
two
proximity.
3 regs.
Proximity. They're trying to get rid of the 1,000-foot rule.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah.
we talked about this last night, but was this just the law was poorly written? Did they not foresee that there would obviously, if, they put a limit on the number of stores you could have a majority ownership on, but they didn't limit at all what you could have a 49% ownership on? Was that just an oversight in law, or would they need to basically go in and correct the law? I think I'm not a lawyer, but from what they were telling us last night is they believe the law said there's no limit on the number of stores you can have 49% ownership of.
Well, I mean, part of the problem that social equity didn't get stood up in this state is because of the injunction. So it's interesting that the perpetrators of these, dispensary grabs are the same people benefiting from the slowdown, the intentional slowdown of the market. Is there something in the law? Actually, they can do something with the regs.
They could always
What's happening now?
I mean, just to what Will made a very good point at the meeting. I mean, the legal process is their right to do that, and that's and I thought it was an interesting point that he raised, that military veterans or disabled veterans were one of the protected classes, and he raised that was the point of his lawsuit, right? And there was nothing that helped them. But that's a separate issue than the 49%. And I bring it up because the services that they said that they're providing to them does not have to come with ownership. It can be a contracted service that you're showing them how to operate the dispensaries and hiring people. It doesn't have to be ownership. And that's more my concern, that you end up with the same operator across a huge swath of things without the owners participating in the business, and then we don't see the diversity of businesses that we were hoping to see in the beginning.
I want to make sure we get to Susan's question. If we could maybe stop the back and forth. Susan had a question.
Yes, hi, thank you. A quick question. Maura, I've noticed that, I sent you an email, I guess it slipped through the cracks, but.
I'm sorry, I didn't stop moving.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to bring it up, Smacked, which is, I think, the second dispensary we had in our area open up, is invisible from the street practically. You go into a lobby that's empty and you have to show lots of identification, and they let the customers in through a locked door that's open, with a swipe card or something. And it's completely uninviting and inhospitable. Then on West Broadway, there's Dagmar, which is there, that has, like a sandwich board on the corner advertising, which they shouldn't. It's a beautiful store, glass windows. It's like any other business on West Broadway, completely welcoming. People come in with baby carriages. And I feel like they're obviously going to do much better because it's so nice. And I'm not even talking about other shops outside of CB2, but I just didn't know why it was so different. And why their shop isn't as welcoming as some of the others. Is it just because they were so early, or it just seemed unfair to them?
That was the first DASNY site in the state. It was also the first justice involved individual owned dispensary in the state. It was built by the state contracted company, Temecca Group. I don't know if you know, that has all fallen apart now. These DASNY sites, these early DASNY sites, they were a mess. So Smack was built in this kind of cookie cutter way. And I think it was just early, and I think that the people who designed it were trying to follow the regs, and they followed them maybe a little too strictly. Things are much more relaxed now.
Yeah, I felt like there was pressure from the community in the beginning, like, is this going to be bad? Are people going to see it? Or, kids going to go in? And, I was near Morton Williams, and I just feel like, it's the Doe Foundation, right? I mean, they seem like desperate.
No, it's not. The Doe Foundation is Union Square on 13th and Broadway.
I see.
This is owned by this is owned by the
Housing Works, and then this one, I think, opened. But anyway, I just felt like they weren't getting a fair shake compared to.
They are not. They absolutely are not. And I don't know that that's an accident. So you're absolutely right.
Okay.
Great. Well, did you have one last comment or anything?
I was just curious do we know who the operator is that has a 49% stake in like 16 stores that they were referencing?
Nobody has 16 stores in New York State. That's who.
Is there an online, is there a way for us to?
You will never know. We asked for the term sheet.
Yeah.
They were like, nope. And there was a reason they didn't want to give it to us. And it wasn't because it was proprietary. They did not want to give it to us because they don't want to tip TPI. Now I am casting aspersions. I am assuming it's because they don't want to get in trouble. TPI is very, very sensitive. Not that they're doing anything wrong.
And will you be going over capital expense budget at your October meeting?
I will.
Okay, thanks. Schools and Ed, Patricia.
Oh, okay. Our meeting is on Monday, September 23rd. We're amending our capital and budget priorities. We met earlier in.
This is your second meeting on it.
Yeah.
Excellent. I think you were the first.
Yeah.
To get that
So we're
going.
amending it because there were some monies awarded in July of this year. And I reached back to all the schools to see if they were awarded funds. So we'll discuss that on Monday. And then our second agenda item will be a resolution to support the Dyslexia Diagnosis Access Act that Senator Brad Williams Siegel has. In the state Senate.
And any idea for an October agenda yet?
No.
Okay, no worries. And do we have anyone from Human Services to give a report?
Susanna emailed that they didn't meet in August and that they will be working on the district needs statement and budget priorities at their meeting in September.
Great, which is next week. Wonderful. And then I will give an outdoor dining working group report very quickly. We meet next Wednesday at 5:30. We finally received Dining Out NYC applications outside of the West Village. Those have been the ones we've had. So we have Spring Lounge for a sidewalk cafe, and then Les Botanistes for a sidewalk cafe and roadway cafe. So we have 3 applications across 2 applicants. In total, DOT has referred 9 Dining Out NYC applications to CB2 to date since May. As you've heard, we have 3 of them we are hearing for the first time next week. There are several hundred more, at least 200 plus in the queue for CB2 that we are waiting to be referred to us for review and comment. Really quickly, I had planned this report before I knew I was chairing this meeting, so I will be brief. But since the August 4th deadline for participating restaurants who are in the temporary program to apply for Dining Out NYC, there have been 116 outdoor dining complaints. filed in CB2. 31% of those are still in progress. DOT has issued 8 summonses to 7 operators. One of those summonses is for an unauthorized restaurant, which means receiving a summons for that complaint that they did not apply in the temporary program. They did not apply to the permanent program, and they are still operating. So just so people get an idea of what kind of enforcement is happening. That's a 14% overall decrease in complaints for outdoor dining year over year, and a 6.3% decrease in average over the average of the past 4 years. With that, that is the end of our committee reports. Does anyone have any new business? I do have one item for new business. Again, this was before I know I was chairing this. Really quickly, but very important, Hudson Square, New York Forward Local Planning Committee has a meeting tomorrow on Wednesday, September 18th at the Fund for the City of New York. It is from 3 to 5 p.m. It is open to the public. On the agenda tomorrow, we will be hearing project presentations by applicants or project sponsors who are seeking funding from the $4.5 million New York Forward grant that was awarded to Hudson Square. There are 14 project proposals from 9 project sponsors. I don't believe the deck is on the website yet. It usually won't get posted until afterward. There is a 10-minute public comment period, and the project proposals range from enhancing pedestrian safety at Canal Street Canal Street crossings to expanding Spring Street Park with Little Sixth Avenue Plaza to public art installations, a color walk, upgrading the Film Forum's lighting and website, installing a Jackie Robinson statue at the Jackie Robinson Museum, and funds for a complete renovation of the New York City Fire Museum space. As you know, that institution is still closed because of the structural issues that came up over the summer. I will put the link in the email below. It has the address and the time for the meeting. And that is that. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? It is 7:52. I have a motion from Mar and a second from Will. Thank you very much. This meeting is now adjourned.
Bye.
Bye. The answer is no.
Okay, I thought it was.
Sorry.